Can we cut one in half and put sugar on them?
Oh, yeah. We used to do that when we were younger.
I know. I'd want to do. Do you want to do one? Do you want to take a hit?
I'll take one. I
of
need
lemon.
I'll take a hit of lemon.
I eat lemon all the time.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I need it.
Did you ever do that as a kid?
Well, no. The way I do it is I just like crunch it up. Like I literally like bite into the lemon.
Oh my gosh, no.
You know, like
I don't do that. I do the dip in the sugar and then you lick it.
We did the vocal cords. So I was in musicals, right? My mom, peppermint candy cane. She's pluck them in lemons and you squeeze and stuff on it. It clears your vocal cords.
Oh man,
It's a little trick.
that's
So
cool.
I went from no voice. I went no voice Friday night to Saturday being able to sing as Warbox.
it's a trade
on Annie.
secret. Callie probably knows something about that.
Yeah.
I had Andre Crouch,
Yeah.
the famous gospel singer.
Mhm.
I actually knew him.
Oh, nice.
Which very, very nice guy. I just when he was the last few of his life, he always carried around a little bottle of Tabasco sauce that was in a holster on his belt,
The quick
and so
draw.
he would do it before he went on stage to warm up. I just thought it was so
it's like an
funny.
undercover brother movie.
I just thought it was so funny, yeah, that he had it in a holster, and I was like, "Why do you have Tabasco?" He goes, "It's good for my voice." I was like, "Your voice is already raspy as all get out."
Yeah.
I have this spice herb thing that's supposed to clear my sinuses. That's always in my glove compartment.
Oh man,
My car.
that's so funny. Oh wow, thank you,
Ooh, boy.
Lavonda. You're a good woman.
Living.
There's
Look
a
at
special
this.
place in heaven for you. Look at this. Oh my gosh. This is a blast from the past. See. Have you ever done this?
All right.
I'm going to
Bye.
Bye guys.
Okay.
You guys
Okay.
have never done this before?
I haven't.
No.
You want to try it?
Yeah. How does it
Yeah,
work?
I'll do a sugar lemon.
Oh, my quite made it.
We did this as a kid. So you dip it in sugar like this, and you lick it off.
Hit it.
I was like candy.
Well,
like candy?
when you don't have a lot of money and you're 4,
Yeah, it's like candy. It's basically like it reminds me of like a tame lemon head.
Oh, I see.
Super tame.
Yeah.
that's the
It's
move.
good.
That's the move.
All right, so we'll
good.
We'll get into it.
This is an amazing man. One of the most intelligent, well-spoken, very logical, problem-solving, world shaker. This man, you're so much a critical acclaim. Great publicist, author. Has ghostwritten over 40 novels, if
Thank
not
you.
more. Has been mentioned by Forbes, LA Style,
Yeah, my work has been USA Today, Forbes, LA Style Magazine.
Good Morning LA, Good Morning America.
Good Morning America.
And most importantly, my pastor.
Yeah, he's our pastor.
And he recently just dropped a book called Your Breakthrough Year.
Mm-hmm.
He's working on another one, but I don't want to spoil too much of that right now. But without further ado, Pastor Stefan Junaeus.
Thank you, Q. Q, I'm going to take you everywhere. I'm just going to have you introduce me.
I got you, dude.
Every room I go into.
We'll
I'm
have the
just gonna-
trumpets, and then I'll announce it
I'm
with the
just gonna
scroll.
hire you as
Yeah, you got to make sure you got the sound, the soundtrack going on.
exactly. My gosh, that made me sound great.
Coming in at 6'2".
Thank you, dude. I'm super excited to be here. I've watched a few episodes. I mean, what you guys are doing is so fun and amazing. And so, yeah, thanks for having me.
You're the perfect guest to have on, especially at the start of the year. I know we're a couple months in, but we're still like, in
Still
the first
fresh.
trimester.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And your the message you're bringing through this book is so on time. Your breakthrough year. One of the things I wanted to touch on is what led. Well, because our podcast is about aspiring artists and people who are business professionals.
Yeah.
At every level of their career. So we have people who are like just starting. We have people who are like in the midst of the fight, so to speak. And we have people
Totally.
who are like, they've quote unquote made it, you
Yeah.
know? So I think just as far as like the people who are on our level where we're artists, we're working on different things and we're getting opportunities for more and more projects. Your breakthrough year like really spoke and stuck out to us on a career level,
Yeah, of course.
but also on a spiritual level.
yeah.
So to start, what kind of led up to you creating and writing your breakthrough year?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a little bit about my background, just empathy in the creative space. I started as a creative. Right out of graduate school, worked in tech as a content writer. I did a lot of videography, almost went to film school. But kind of went towards the writing.
Right.
Did some kind of film, television stuff, but really just gravitated more towards content creation. First started blogging, eventually became a content strategist. Now I have my company Signature Message. We do books. I've ghostwritten over 50 books. We'll publish 30 books this year. On the label. And so I have I very much have empathy and understand kind of the journey of going from creative to building like, an actual business and making money. And the real heart of the book, or why I wrote it, was it really came from a personal space. I was going from kind of a solopreneur to saying, hey, I'm getting to work with some great people. I'm writing these cool books. To, hey, I really want to build my own business. I really want to start to scale. I want to start bringing on, members of the team. I've had people in my family that have been very successful in the area of business. However, no one has built a large scalable business.
Right.
And so that was kind of my initial interest of I want to grow our church. I want to build this company. I want to solve the money problem for my family. And so I started doing a couple of things. The first is, outside of books, my company Signature, we've developed over 100 coaching businesses for clients. So we not only do books, but we specialize in turning books into, or the way we say it, turning signature messages into world-class coaching businesses. So I've done a lot of work in the coaching space, executive coaching.
Yeah.
And I began to realize that when, whatever we built, a coaching program for whoever it is, and some of our coaches are really successful. They have 7-figure coaching businesses. They're on tour, tours nationally. There was a set of 6 principles that kind of laid across every program. And so my interest with the book was to say, okay, what does the journey of success actually look like? What does it mean to have a breakthrough? We hear that term a lot. A lot of people, talk about having a breakthrough. And so I define your breakthrough year in the book is, I basically say, look, most of your goals that you want to achieve personally or professionally, they take longer than a year. Most goals take 5 years. They take 10 years. Some even take 20. So a breakthrough year is not the year everything happens, but it is the year everything changes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so there always is a moment in folks' professional career or even personal life where they look back and go, man, that was the year things shifted.
Right.
So if you're an entrepreneur, that was the year, I broke through a certain revenue goal and I figured it out. If you were a public speaker, it's the year that you started going on tour. If you're a creative, if you're someone who is an actor, that's the year I started getting bookings.
Yeah.
There's always a breakthrough year, like a moment in time where things shift.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one, I wanted to study that. What was the journey of breaking through? What were the steps? And then how do you create that? So if you had 12 months and you said, okay, I know where I am, but I want this to be my breakthrough year, what are the 6 key fundamental steps that I would have to take in order to really break through?
Right.
Yeah. And so, so the book came from my own experience writing a lot of these coaching programs and seeing what actually works. But number 2, being around successful people and really kind of studying what's the actual journey to goal setting and goal achievement. And then the third was realizing that, hey, I want to lay this out in a way that I can use it, but I want to be able to kind of teach people the best. And instead of someone having to go hire some executive coach, for a ridiculous amount of money, these 6 steps are fundamentally the steps that any of these coaching systems are going to take you through, where you can get 95% of the benefit.
As a pastor and a business consultant, what are the insights you have between the connection of someone's career success and their spiritual life, a healthy spiritual life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't believe that your success will never outpace your character development.
Right.
And I think a lot of folks, they'll see people that they might be having success right now, but the minute your success outpaces your character development, who you are as a person, that's when you get in trouble.
Mm,
I've interviewed so many people that have done well and kind of blew up their lives,
right.
or
Right.
they traded success for their marriage.
Mm,
You see a lot of that as a pastor. You talk to people about their personal lives.
right.
They traded business success for their spiritual life.
Hmm.
It never really works out.
Right.
And it's so important that your success in the marketplace will never truly outpace, or if it does, it's non-sustainable
Right.
to your character development.
Right.
And so I would encourage people, don't look at your spiritual life as something that you do after
Yeah.
your career.
That's good.
I think that's
That's
a
good.
big mistake people
That's
make
huge.
is they feel survivor. They kind of feel that survival push, and they're like, oh, I got all this stuff. I have to meet the bills. I have all these goals. And then they kind of put their spiritual life at the back burner. The problem with that is that when you do that, you are not going to be able to develop into the person that you need to be
Mm,
in order to actually have long-term success,
right.
maintain, or grow. And
Yeah.
so I would say the opposite. I really encourage people, and I would say this is something I've done, like quite literally. Like I went all in on the church.
Right.
I do church first, even though I have all this stuff going on. And what that has meant for me in my life is now I bring in God to everything I'm doing.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's really the difference is, again, the big mistake people make in a nutshell is they focus on their career, and then they do that. They do the spiritual development stuff if they have time. If I flip that, for me, it's really about character development, spiritual development, developing into who I am as a person, following Jesus, and then me taking that into every sphere I go into.
Right.
And I think that is the true definition of success. If you prioritize your spiritual life and say, look, I'm going to aim my life at the highest good possible, but I'm going to put Jesus as my cornerstone. I'm going to put my faith as my cornerstone.
Yeah.
What that means is, like, a cornerstone directs. It's an old building term. Whenever they would build a building in when they used to build things not out of cement but out of like blocks, a cornerstone was the first stone that they laid, and that would dictate all the other stones that they would
Right.
put. And if the cornerstone was off, they couldn't build the building, or once they built it, it would have structural integrity issues.
Right.
I think spirituality is exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you choose who you're going to be as a person, and you decide, in my case, you go all in on God, and you see yourself as a citizen of heaven, and you get that cornerstone bit right,
Right.
everything else you build is going to be aligned with, I think, God's goodness.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big believer in that. I think if you do it that way, man, every room you're going to go into, you're going to go in there knowing who you are in Him.
Yeah.
You're going to go in there with integrity, with character, spiritual development. You're going to know who you are. As people, become successful, they often lose sight of who they really are.
Right.
They start getting entitled. They start getting in trouble. I think that just comes from success outpaces character development. I mean, you see it a lot in Hollywood. It's like, hey, let's take a 22-year-old and give them 100 million followers and give them $10 million a year.
Right.
And then we wonder why they're narcissistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, well, what's the problem? Well, their material and financial success is outpacing their character
Mhm.
development. And so the way to fix that is build your life on not sand, but on solid rock. Let your faith be your cornerstone. And if you do that, you're not just going to have, God in your life, every other Sunday. Every room you're going to go into, you're gonna bring Him in
Right.
with you.
That's good.
Mitigating your integrity gap, right? And you see it all the time, that integrity gap, it outpacing your character, and then you fall through, and then your exponential growth gets cut.
Yeah.
So you want to work on mitigating your integrity gap.
Yeah. I think it's so funny. Like, people, I would say that the number one, in the spiritual side, the number one piece of advice I would give to like a really busy millennial entrepreneur is go to your local church and commit to serving.
Mm.
And you'll be like, Pastor Stefan, why am I got so much time. I got so many things to do. Like, why am I doing this? I would say that you have to develop a vision for your life that is bigger than your own needs.
Right.
And you have to see yourself as an active agent in the world past your sphere of influence.
Right.
And the only way to do that is to take a larger stake
Right.
in making a bigger impact and having a portion of your life that's sacrificially giving, where it's not about you getting something in return. It's about you making actual impact.
Right.
And so there's such a difference. I talk to people who are 35, 36 all the time, and they're like, they can barely get together. They're falling apart. Like, they're not, there's not a lot of structural integrity. And, we know exactly a lot of folks, almost always their biggest problem is they've never put anyone first.
Right.
And so they haven't developed those muscles. They haven't developed the sacrificial servanthood muscles. It's all about them,
Right.
and their own needs. And that will make you weaker, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that what grew me, having to completely rebuild my business after COVID, becoming a lead pastor, not taking a salary, having a full-time job, going all in on the church, and having to learn to manage all that,
Right.
was super challenging. I didn't do it well. Like, it's 90-hour work weeks. How the heck am I supposed to do all this? But it was the single best decision I ever made. It grew me so fast. My ability to handle pressure, stress, 10x.
Right.
And in many ways, I often feel sometimes it's hard for me to relate to the people my age, because like I feel like what they're carrying versus what I'm responsible for, it's so different.
Right.
But
Right.
it's so weird. I'll look at what they're carrying and they're way more stressed out. And
Yeah.
I'm like not stressed, but I have way more responsibility. And it's like, well, what's the difference? Well, I spent 3 years serving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, we're building the church. We're expanding God's kingdom on earth. That's our primary role and responsibility. It is a responsibility. Let's get after it.
Yeah.
Let's help people. And yeah, I think if you take that position, man, you're going to grow so fast.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. That really is huge.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just taking the time and going through the process and allowing it to grow you, mature you, and allowing it to increase your capacity, not just for you and your family, but for all the people around you. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a realization years ago where I was really struggling. I had anxiety. This was maybe like 7 years ago now. I was anxious. I was in therapy. And I had a real revelation. I realized that, hey, Stefan, like if you don't get it together, like if you don't learn how to organize your life, take your place in the world, get better, everyone around you is going to suffer.
Right.
Your future wife will suffer. Your family's going to suffer. Your church is going to suffer. The world is going to suffer, because the world needs leaders. It needs servant leaders, not narcissistic leaders,
Right.
where it's all about them. But I think they need young folks, like men like us, to stand up and say, hey, like, we're going to build this thing. We're going to build the church. We're going to build our businesses. We're going to take responsibility. We're going to be leaders in our families. Everyone in our family is going to be better off. My parents are going to be better off because of my success. My church is going to be bigger because I'm there. The company I work for is going to be better off because I'm present and I'm working, and really taking that position.
Right.
And saying that I have a responsibility to turn myself into someone that rises all tides, all boats around me. And that's the definition of success. I mean, if you think about it, like think about really successful people that we admire in their 70s and 80s. They're successful cross domain. It's like, hey, I put myself together. I'm organized. I have a house. Like I have financial success. I have a family. my wife's happy, my kids are happy, my family's intact, right? I built the company. I'm in charge of all these people. They're thriving. Our business is thriving. And by the way, I'm also a leader in my church and I lead this ministry. And by the way, I'm also part of this board. Like the definition, someone who's successful is successful personally, in their family successful, the organization they're a part of is successful, but they're also making impact past their own needs. I remember when I was like 28, I was like, okay, like I'm going to do everything I can to turn myself into a person that will be as successful as possible across the most amount of domains as possible over the longest time horizon possible. And that was my responsibility to figure out how to become that person.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, I love that. You know, you have many talents. So, but when I say this, just from an outside perspective, looking in, it seems that looking at someone's vision and being able to create practical steps is one of your superpowers.
Yeah.
And would you say that, like, what led up to that? Was it just your time working on all these coaching programs that kind of led up to that? Was it the time where, like, what time in your journey led up to you getting such a fine-tuned skill as far as being able to help business consult now?
The business consulting side came from me really having it, to use the term vision, having a vision for who I wanted to work with.
Right.
You know, when I started my career as a writer, my first 5 gigs I took for like almost no money. I remember my first book I ever ghost wrote I took $1,000 from like some pastor out of Florida. I just wanted to get like points on the board, which I'm a big believer in. I think most entrepreneurs, especially creatives, like photographers, videographers, if I gave any practical advice for someone in the beginning of their career, I would say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Don't assume you have a lot of value.
Right.
Create value. And get really, really good. The only way you're going to get really good is to do a lot of projects. But also, even if you're really, really good, you have to know who you want to work with.
Yeah.
That's really the key.
Yeah.
Clients are not going to come to you.
Right.
You're going to have to go to them.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to figure out who you can help. So I realized a couple years ago, like, hey, if I charge, just for example, say I charge like $6,000 to do a book, I'm doing the same amount of work as working with a regular person versus a business owner.
Right.
That's maybe going to pay 20 to 30 for the same job.
Yeah.
It's the same work. It's just I'm working for a different type of client.
Yeah.
So I started with a vision. I wanted to work with business people.
Right.
I wanted to work with smart people, people with money, people that saw value in what I could do.
Right.
And then every deal I have, every person I work with, I kind of see it as a partnership, and I'm honest about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, like you can go and hire someone to work for your company, or you can hire us, and you're going to get like us as a team.
Right.
And so, but it started with a real vision of who I wanted to work with. And then, kind of the process that I took was, and I talk about it in the book, the importance of writing it down, figuring out, okay, who's your ideal client? Who do I want to work with? How much do they make? What are their needs? Getting around people who are your ideal client.
Yeah.
I think that's number one is I think most people are like, hey, I'd love a client that's successful, but I don't really know any. Getting around them, figuring out what they need, getting the first set of yeses for no money just to work with them.
Right.
I did that. There's a couple one project I did, got published HarperCollins. It went on the Today Show. I got paid like $1,000 to do that deal.
Right.
And I over-delivered.
You over-delivered.
Yeah. The other writer on the project got paid $80,000 and I got $1,000.
Right.
And he did more work than me, but not that much more. But I didn't care because I turned that around.
Right.
And built a business.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
Literally built a business out of that one single project. Have a vision for who you want to work with. Find ways to help them, track them down, talk to them, see what they need, start working for them, get your foot in the door. Once you've worked with a couple of those clients, it's way easier to work for more.
Right.
a big mistake I've seen people make, especially like creatives. They'll come in and go, hey, like, I'm super good at this. Like, I deserve X. And it's like, well, you really don't. Like, you haven't done it yet.
You haven't done it yet.
Yeah. So just get like 3 big wins with like 3 big clients.
Yeah.
Just get the S and put them on your resume. Get them to endorse you.
Right.
And then leverage that
For more.
into just say, hey, I've worked with people just like you, right? It's very, if you've worked with business owners and then you go to work with other business owners, they trust you if you've done it before and they see work where they go, oh, okay, like they've handled projects this size,
Right.
But you kind of need your first few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's 100.
Yeah.
I also wanted to kind of riff off that, like in your experience, and I'll add like a little example from my experience. But what's some of the common pitfalls you see with people who are like starting their own businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Now, for example, one thing that I see a lot is that almost like in their planned business model, there's usually like a flaw, meaning like your business model is set around you working 90 hours.
Yeah.
That's in your business model. So now this is never going to change because your business model is set around
Correct.
certain aspects that are eventually going to mess you up.
Yeah.
Unkeepable.
What are you doing?
Not
Yeah.
sustainable.
Not sustainable.
So I guess your question is like, what are some of the pitfalls that people
Yeah.
make mistakes in
Right.
terms of building their business when they start out?
Mm-hmm.
I would say a couple of things, maybe 3 things. The first is they have an overinflated sense of their own value when it comes to work production. I know this sounds funny, but like I would say realize that the market dictates your pay.
Right.
And so if you're offering value, you're going to make more. If
Right.
you're not getting paid what you want for projects, it just means you're not adding enough value.
Yeah.
And so an example of how you can increase your value is, go from, being a content producer to a content manager.
Right.
That's like a very easy one. If, for instance, if you're a videographer and you're getting paid to do videography work, there's only so much in a marketing budget that goes to a videographer.
Yeah.
But if you are not just a videographer, but you're a project manager,
Right.
and you brand yourself not only as a videographer, but as someone that can manage a project
Yeah.
with creatives under you,
Right.
well, then you'll be able to 3, 4, 5 extra value.
Yeah.
Because now a client doesn't, they're not just going to pay you to do that job. They'll give you the entire contract,
Right.
and then they'll trust that like you can manage it.
Take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be like an easy way
Right.
of like of increasing value. It's like, hey, I'm a videographer now, but I actually want to be a project manager. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list of other folks that I work with, maybe a graphic design artist, a media company, someone who's a web designer, copy. I'm going to create a team, and so now when I meet a client who is interested in videography work, I'll have an intake form, do a discovery call, figure out exactly what their marketing
Right.
needs are, and then if they don't have a project manager, say, hey, that's what I can do this work,
Right.
but if you're open to it, why don't I let me just manage it. And then all these other things that you are saying you need, we do that.
Yeah.
Like I have all the connections, like we can make it happen.
Right.
So that
And
would be
you're
like,
freeing up their time.
Correct.
So they don't have to micromanage every little thing that happens with
yeah,
the
100%.
project.
Yeah. So I would say the first one is that I see people make a mistake in is they start with what they think their value is
Mhm.
rather than starting with what the client needs,
Right.
and then adjusting what they do to create value.
Right. Right.
So that'd be number one. The second would be lead with generosity. When you have clients, if they believe you can solve problems for them, they will continue to give you work.
Right.
I've seen a lot of folks that are starting out, and a big mistake they make is they just kind of lack that responsibility. So in their mind, they're like, I don't want to deal with this client, or, I can't believe they're asking me for XYZ.
Mhm.
Just very, they're taking advantage of me. That kind of mentality is a limiting belief.
Right.
that's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
Like lead with generosity, over deliver,
Right.
do a great job,
Yeah.
find out how you can help solve more problems than they're asking for.
Right.
And then every time they engage with you, make sure that you have a solution,
Yeah.
because what you want is you want to create in their mind like trust.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, like that guy's on it.
Right.
Because every business person, you know, especially if you have a small business, so many people that are like employed today, they're so flaky.
Right.
So just by like delivering and being available
Yeah.
and asking, how can I help?
Right.
That will put you in like a huge, it'll put you in a massive differentiating position.
Think about consistency. Adding value to others is what adds value to yourself. And those two things are going to build and allow you to scale what you're trying to do. And it builds the most trust.
Yeah. And then the third I would say is you need a production system. So whatever you're
Right.
doing, you have to have a system that you can train someone else to do.
Yeah.
I'm going through that right now. So I have a few people working with me. They're fantastic. As we're bringing on more clients, a big part of what we're doing is training and you know, going through that process. There is a rule. I mean, if someone can do what you can do to about 70 or 80%, you should probably train somebody.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if you're working 80, 90 hours on production, how are you going to bring in more business?
Right.
So
That's the big one.
yeah. Because if you're good at the sales bit and you're good at if you can kind of be in the sales seat as much as possible, where you're networking, you're talking to clients, you're adding value,
Right.
you're figuring out how to help them. You're kind of the liaison for the client.
Right.
I would take a look at what you're offering from a production point of view, whatever your business is, and then the bottom 50% of the tasks that you're like, hey, someone can do this to 80% of my standard. Like delegate that out,
Right.
and train someone. You're buying time so you can spend more time growing.
You would say that would also help with like burnout,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
People burn themselves out because they're pushing so hard, but they're pushing from the wrong angle.
Yeah.
They're not making good use of their time.
There's like a term for it, like in the creative space. It's like the revenue roller coaster. So it's like you don't have any clients, and you're like you spend all your time getting new business,
Right.
and then now you have all this business. So now you're spending all your time doing production,
Yeah.
and then you don't bring in any new business.
Right.
So then, like you're like, oh, this is great, but then the projects are done, and then your revenue goes back down, and then you have to go find more business. So it ends up looking kind of like this.
Like that. Yep.
I think that the smarter approach is to say, okay, I'm going to spend half my time bringing in sales.
Yeah.
Like, so out of a 50-hour work week, 25 hours are going to be fully committed to sales. And then if your production goes above the other 25 hours, then that's a good indicator that you need to start offloading.
Right.
You need to start delegating. And there's a lot of, I mean, regardless of your business, there's a ton of stuff that are that's time suckers.
Yeah.
Like I'm terrible at admin stuff. It's like hilarious how bad I am. Email management, responding to stuff. So clients, I respond like instantly, but everything else, like I have Krista, my EA, like she handles all of that. If I have to buy something for someone, she does it. Like all the time sucking
Right.
stuff.
And that is like those. I mean, it's crazy how quick time can get burned on those tasks. Like,
Yeah, any admin. But it's like, if you think about it, it's like, okay, like I can pay someone $25 an hour to do this. So that would free me up to make a few $100s an hour.
Right.
And then if you're focused, you know, if you're spending 25 hours a week on sales, you know, and you're starting to sell, if you continue to do that, you just, you know, take the bottom 50% of any project, take on a partner. You know, maybe there's someone entry level who's trying to get into your position. You don't have to give them equity or anything, but just give them a percentage of the deals
Right.
to manage.
Right. Yeah.
Do the math, figure out like, okay, how many hours is it taking me to close a new client? and then figure out like what your margin is in relationship to clients. So say, your average client pays you 10 grand and it takes 25 hours to bring in a new client, right? And your margin is 75%.
Right.
So out of the 10, you're walking away with 7,500. Well, that means if you spend 25 hours a week, you can increase your income, 7, 4 to 28, 30, over $300,000 a year.
Right.
Right. And so, or you can spend 90 hours servicing the one client.
Getting wrecked.
Yeah.
You can spend 90 hours getting wrecked.
Yeah. So delegate, easiest thing. If you don't have money to hire someone, you don't need to most of the time. I mean, there's so many 1099 employees. You just attach them to the revenue of the project.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a really clever way to do it.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about these, and we're going to get specific too, but talk to me about these areas of breakthrough. So in the book, you have health, financial, time, personal, professional, spiritual, family, team.
Yeah. So basically the idea is, that life is not made up of one area. Life is made up of a set of areas that are all interconnected. And so I'm a big believer that, you kind of want to play the game of life in a way where you don't just win in one life domain, but you win in the most amount of life domains possible for the longest amount of time. And so everything's interconnected. Your work life is connected to your health, which is connected to your family, right? And so I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, like, in order to be successful in one domain, so the area of business,
right,
they'll sacrifice their health and personal relationships for that. I wouldn't really define that as long-term success.
Right.
Like exchanging your health for success in your business is not great.
No.
Of course, we have like moments where you have to push yourself really hard for, 3 months, 6 months, a year. But ideally, create a vision for the whole of your life.
Yeah.
For success. And I think the best visions are visions that are big and bold and they take into account everything. What does success mean to you? And so that's kind of step one in the book. Before you can have a breakthrough year, create a vision. Create a vision for your life. And I also suggest have a big picture vision, what I call it, which is a 5 to 10 year vision for your life. It's real easy. Sit down and describe your future self in every life area. It takes maybe 30 minutes, but describe what is your ideal romantic life.
Right.
Do you see yourself married? Do you see yourself with a family? What is your ideal health life?
Right.
Describe it, quite literally first person. I'm 45 years of age. My week looks like this. Every morning I go for a workout. I start my work at 9.
Yeah.
This is where I live. Include your wife in there, include potentially future kids or your current kids, how much money you make. Really build a vision for the life you want to live. But don't just create a vision just for your business. Create a vision that includes the whole of your life.
Yeah, every aspect.
Every aspect of your life. And I think if you have a really great vision for who you want to be and where you want to go, that's the first step to, I think, experiencing any breakthrough. It's very hard to hit a target if you don't have an aim.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, what's true for archery is also true in life. Imagine if life is an arrow and you take a shot at it. If you don't have a target, you're just shooting in any random direction.
Right.
And I think that's why, people show up at different ages of their life and they're like, how the heck did I get here? I think most people have the desire to be successful.
Yeah.
The desire is, I think, in the vast majority of people, I think it just comes down to vision.
Yeah.
Is you need an aim in life. You need something to shoot for. You need a target that you want to hit. And the more vivid the target, the clearer your aim is, I think the more likely you are to be successful in that space.
I want you to, if you have any thoughts on just being honest, and we'll go a little pop culturally, non-delulu on your start point, where you start in all of those areas, and how that can really help your aim in hitting those targets that you're vividly describing.
Yeah. So number one, be honest. about
Yeah.
where you're at.
That's huge.
Um,
That's huge.
yeah, that, it's interesting. I talk about it in the book that there's different kinds of goals. And depending upon what your goal is, there's a different progress path.
Right.
And so there's two kinds of goals. There's goals that are logarithmic and there's goals that are exponential.
Right.
And so what's the difference? So a logarithmic goal is a goal where if you attempt to make progress towards that goal, you make a lot of progress initially and then progress slows.
Right.
So like a goal like this would be losing weight.
Right.
So if your goal is to lose 50 pounds, you're going to lose the most amount of weight in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's going to be the
Quickest.
easiest. You go on a diet, you start working out, your body responds, you lose 10 pounds in the first week.
Right.
Over time, losing the first 10 pounds is easy, but losing the last 10 pounds can be really hard.
Right.
Another goal like this is skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you spend 100 hours doing anything, like if you spend 100 hours developing your ability to play the guitar, any skill over 100 hours that you take time, you're going to be better than like 99% of the population in that given skill. And so it's, a lot of skills are logarithmic, where you spend 100 to 200 hours, you'll get pretty decent.
Right.
But to get expert,
Yeah.
you have to put in like a crazy amount of time. And so, it's good. It depends on your goal. So if you have a logarithmic goal, being honest about where you're at really helps, because, and being honest about your progress path, the actual path to be successful in that specific goal is really helpful, because then you can kind of mentally prepare for the fact, hey, I'm going to make a lot of progress early.
Right.
And then it's going to get harder. So I got to make sure that like I'm disciplined enough to stay committed. The other type of goal is an exponential goal, where everything starts off slow and then things get really fast.
Start going downhill.
Yeah. And so an exponential goal, typically in the area of business. So if you just started your own business and, you're by yourself and you're creative and you're, trying to get clients, your first $5,000 a month is really, really, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say money. I was gonna say money's exponential.
Yeah. Money's exponential.
It compounds.
And so your first $5,000 is like tough as nails, but your next $5,000 going
Right.
from, so $0 to $5,000 a month, really tough. Going from $5,000 to $10,000 a month, half as tough.
Right.
Going from 10,000 to 20 is half as tough as going 5 to 10. It's 25% as hard as going from 0 to 5.
5,000. Yep.
And so there are some goals that are exponential, and that's really good to know.
Yeah.
That's why being truthful. I've seen a lot of folks that, they start their own business. They have big vision.
Right.
They're like, oh, I'm going to do this. I had a friend. He wanted to start a media business to manage media for companies. Dude, he had big vision. I remember we're talking. He was like, "Oh, I could crush this. I could do this. I could be all this." He starts it, gets 3 no's, and quits.
Bless him.
He literally went back to his job, and so one of the first things I did was, when we sat down, I was like, "Hey, buddy, like this is kind of the path to it." The journey to starting your own business is an exponential progress.
Right.
So what that means is, if you're starting something new, just focus on the small wins.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I think that
huge.
where people get, like, where they go wrong is, oh, I'm starting this new business, I'm going to make $250,000 in my first year. And it's like, they've never done sales.
Yeah.
They don't know their client. And then they get a bunch of no's. And instead of saying, this is good, every no, I'm realizing, like, I'm learning who my ideal client is.
Yeah.
Like, maybe my pitch is right, but my client's wrong.
Right.
Or maybe my client's right, but my pitch
This
is
was wrong.
yeah. And the only way to figure that out is through trial and error.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in failing quickly.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're starting a new business, expect that you're going to fail a lot and see how many failures you can get in
Right.
your first 6 months.
Right. Yeah.
I know that sounds funny.
Yeah.
But if you can get like a lot of failures in quickly, then over time, like, you're not going to fail in the future.
You're fine tuning your process.
Yeah.
Every no leads to your yes. And it is a numbers game. There's
Yeah.
in a lot of different fields. This is like overall, whether you're trying to get your art into an art show, your sales pitches. I've done door-to-door business sales. It's literally in every field. Every field.
If you want to scale your business or grow your business, I would say pass say you're in the creative space and you want to pass $100,000 a year, you need to actually be better at sales than you are production.
Yeah. So I was talking to a friend of mine who he created a short film and it just didn't come out the way he wanted it. And he was really bummed about it. And I was like,
most
I said,
most short films in the beginning, as someone who's written my own, and of course it's going to be terrible.
Yeah. I just told
no
him,
one's going to watch it.
I was like, hey man, I said, the problem isn't, especially when it comes to filmmaking, because that's what we do. We spend so much time in it. I said, the issue isn't the idea. The issue is execution. So many films, even on the biggest stages, get lost in execution. You look at some movies and you find out it was like an award-winning script and the movie just wasn't good. Because in execution, you have to get better and better at executing the idea. I was like, so you have to make another one.
Yeah.
You can't just make it and go like, oh, that's it. I'm done. People didn't like it. I'm like, hey man, I was like, you're going to get better and better at making sure the ideas you have are being communicated onto the screen.
Yeah.
Me and Armin were talking about, we go over like when a movie and then we see like our friends' reviews versus critics' reviews versus Rotten Tomatoes. And we're like, okay, so what are we looking at? Was it the ones that break my heart, and Armin knows this, is when the actors are really good.
Yeah.
But the director's shot selection and flow of the movie was just,
well, it's just like a story structure.
Yeah, the story structure problem. And then the unfortunate thing is the normies will hate on the actors. I'm like, that's a phenomenal actor. If you actually watch their acting, because I study acting.
Yeah.
It's just fun. Like when I go to movies, I'm like looking at acting technique and all these acting classes I've taken are going through my head as I'm seeing what they're doing. And I'm like,
movies.
I just want to add one more thing. Yeah. Matt always says this. It's just like this funny phrase that he says. He's like, because we got into this huge debate over Nicolas Cage, and I was talking about how I didn't like a lot of his movies, and he's like, but it's not because of Nick. He's like, Nick's always working. He's like, Nicolas Cage is always doing his thing.
All my favorite Nicolas Cage movies are they're the most wild. I love Face Off.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's
Con Air.
Masterful.
But Face Off's an insane movie.
Face Off is crazy.
Like the opening sequence of that film, just to like get nerdy for a second. Literally, if you've ever seen the movie, the opening frame is John Travolta, whose character works. He's a agent, federal agent, and his son gets murdered.
Yeah, that's right.
By
at the very beginning.
By a sniper.
Yeah, through his body.
Like its opening sequence of that movie is the death of a child
it's so
on screen.
You're right.
And you're just like, this movie's bonkers.
Yeah.
Like, it does not wait. I'm talking like a minute in, the worst thing happens on screen. It shows it, and then that movie's crazy. But that, to me, that's like the best Nicolas Cage.
Oh yeah, that is.
Yeah.
What'd you think of Ghost Rider, the first one? We won't talk about this.
I was shocked at how good a shape he was in.
He was in great shape. People, because I saw it when I was a kid. I'm heavily influenced.
Yeah.
And people were always like, "Oh, it's cheesy." I was like, I can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
I can watch Ghost Rider #1 like every other week, and I'd be happy.
Well, you guys get this. So there's a difference between like something that's technically good, and engaging,
right?
Yeah.
And so like, there's a lot of movies that
that's
are technically like not great.
Good.
You know, and what do I mean by technically good? Maybe the pacing's off,
right?
The writing is poor. Like one example is you know a movie's not great from a writing point of view if there's a character that has to spend time explaining the plot.
Yeah.
If there's ever like some random 2-minute monologue where like you have no idea what's happening, and then a character like connects all the dots like in Vampire Diaries or like a CW show, like that's bad writing. like a writer put that in because they were like, oh, we don't know how to we don't know how to explain these plot points.
Right.
So like, we're going to just have a character explain it for you. So
The
movies can be
detective
technically
character.
bad, but they're awesome. They can be awesome, kind of like food.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not Michelin star, but like,
Right.
dude, I'm going
But it
back.
hits.
Yeah, it hits.
Yeah.
There's just something
I've-
wild and awesome about it.
I recently discovered chilaquiles,
Yeah,
and
perfect example.
there's this Mexican restaurant right next to my work, and I go every lunch break. I'm habitual. I think
Yeah.
me and you are the same that way. Like once we find something we like, we go straight there. And
yeah, I'm like a regular guy.
now he'll be
Yeah.
like, "See you tomorrow," and I'm like, "Oh, it's kind of expensive. I shouldn't be going there every day." But yeah, so
I
definitely
love that.
I also want to say that I worked at a nonprofit for 10 years, and National Treasure was the most donated film of all time.
That's
it
great
should be.
movie.
It was donated. I can't tell you how many copies of National Treasure I've touched with my hands.
That is so funny. Yeah.
Great film. Great film.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage is an American treasure.
Yeah.
He's an
I
American
love
treasure.
him.
Yeah.
He's great.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic.
I say all this to say that you need an exceptional amount of grit, whether it comes to the arts or building a business. You know, having that openness and that ability to pivot, and just that, just perseverance. Really, is what it is.
You
Yeah.
you learn more from failure than you do from success. No one's gonna tell you, "Hey, I won 10 out of 10 times and I learned so much."
Yeah.
Some of your greatest defeats is your defining moments of how you become the superstar to yourself. You know, Abraham Lincoln lost every single political election until he became the most powerful man on the planet. So you got to keep this in mind. And that story is, you know, you can put that some of the greatest people. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. They failed more than you. They failed more than you. They ran around their mountain until their failures could not keep up with them. So
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. People I used to do this, so I can speak to it, but people take failure personally.
Yeah, that's
Like
what it
that
is.
somehow because of failure, because they failed in something, that means they're a failure.
Right.
And
right.
I think that's what a lot of folks are scared of.
Yeah.
They're scared that if I put myself out there
Mhm.
and I get rejected or I can't perform in the way that I think, I have to contend with the fact that I might not be the person that I think I am. I think it's something
Wow.
like it's something like that,
Yeah.
and that's very scary.
Yeah.
And so I would, what I encourage people to do is kind of assume like, okay, the more successful you'll be in any life domain, the more complicated your problems are going to be. And we kind of know that intuitively. So for instance, you know, when I was 16, you know, and I got a first job, my big problem was how do I manage a Netflix subscription and like enough money to go on a date?
Right.
Right. But once you kind of figure out like basic financial management, right, then when you're 23, it's like, how do I deal with a roommate and a normal job? And then how do I balance a budget? If you do that successful, then you eventually get married. How do I build a household budget? How do I manage my personal budget and a budget for a business?
Right.
So like the more successful you are, your problems get bigger.
Yeah.
And so by definition, if you're successful, you're always going to have one foot in the things that you've mastered, but you're always going to have one foot in the unknown, because it's the unknown is what's new.
Right.
And so again, the more successful you are, the bigger your problems are going to grow. And if you're doing it correctly, at least half of your journey should be in an unknown space. So an example, say you get really good at a creative job, and now you have more clients than you know what to do with. And so now you have to build a business. Well, what makes you think you know how to build a business? And why the heck would you expect that you know how to do something that you've never done before?
Right.
And so it's perfectly reasonable to fail. And I think in terms of like, if I was talking to an entrepreneur, you have to accept that from the get-go.
Yeah.
It's
that's
something
true.
like I've never done this before by definition.
Right.
This is a new terrain. I've mastered other terrains, but now I have to, like, I'm a very good videographer, but now I have to manage 10 projects
Right.
and vendors and sales.
Right.
I've never done sales before. I've never done management before.
Right.
And now I have to work with vendors and figure out how to, you know, balance these budgets. Well, I've never done any of this. So I'm going to give myself the room
Yeah.
to actually learn how to do this.
Yeah.
And that's where like the honesty comes from.
yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're a failure. That actually means that you're successful.
Right.
Your mindset. You have
Yeah.
a successful mindset.
And so you mentioned before, like, what's the value of grit? Well, the reason why grit is so important and never giving up, it's like, well, like, what do we mean by that? It doesn't mean grit doesn't mean like insanity. It doesn't
Right,
mean doing
yeah.
the exact same thing over and over and over and
again.
never getting results
Yeah.
and then being stuck and never giving up and hoping that it will all work out. Grit is the process of being able to try something new, identify what isn't working, and then have enough courage to kind of take that on the chin and then get
Try
back up
again.
and then to do it over and over and over again. And then over time, improve
Yeah.
your ability to work in that new environment, or you get better at the skills. And so, like I was talking to someone the other day who's going to start their business, and they were like, "What do I need to know?" And I said, "Well, so if I think about like a lot of folks that I've seen fail, and then I felt like I've really the last year like broken through
Mm-hmm.
to just another level in terms of what I've been able to do."
Right.
And I was thinking about like what was like the one thing that maybe was the difference. And it just came down to like being willing to fail over and over and over and over again,
Yeah.
and not get off
Yeah.
get off like the train, so to speak.
To really phrase it or to sum it up, you failing or getting a no doesn't make you a failure. You decide when you're a failure. When you give up,
Yeah.
when you
Right.
quit,
Yeah.
that is a sign of failure. Not you getting a no, not it not working out like you wanted it to work out.
Right.
But when you're like, oh, I can't do this, you can do anything.
Yeah.
It's a lie, first of all. So you believing the lie that you can't win, you believing the lie that one no or multiple no's or multiple mistakes makes you give up or quit, that's being a failure. You going through the process and there being a struggle, which is the only way we really grow, that's you winning. You persevering and moving forward through it and not letting it hem you up into a state of stasis. That's where failure is. But
Yeah. And I talk about that in the book, basically where I explain that, one of the challenges that we have in society is that when we see someone experience breakthrough, so they go from an unknown actor to winning an Oscar, or they go from, a business guy who starts in his garage and then now they have some big company. Most of the time we only see the breakthrough moment.
Right.
We only see the moment in that person's journey where everything shifted. There's a great interview I reference in the book where Oprah Winfrey in 2014 declares 2014 the year of Kevin Hart. And she's interviewing him and she says that this is the year of Hart. You're everywhere. And then he says, I'm a 14-year overnight success. He goes, most people don't realize I've been in Hollywood for over 14 years. And he named all his stand-up specials that he did. And one of the things that I discovered just talking to a lot of successful people is 99.9% of them, like quite literally, they're just really good at racking up small wins.
Right. Yeah.
And so when everyone else was doing other stuff, they just grinded and they got better and better. They really made small improvements over time, and those improvements started to really stack up. So by the time they got an open window, they took a mile instead of getting a yard.
Yeah.
And that's something I would also say to anyone kind of in the entrepreneurial space is don't wait for an opening. I see this a lot as like, oh, I have this dream. I really want to do it. And they're like waiting. By the time they actually get the opportunity, they can only take a yard.
A yard. Right.
Because they're spending all their time like catching up.
That's good.
Versus
That's good.
like, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they are so like driven. Like they spend all their time racking up wins.
Right.
Relationship wins.
Right.
Like literally like having a CRM with hundreds of individual people and connections they know, working on their own skill set, putting themselves in a better position, like taking all those small wins. So by the time they get the opportunity, they take a mile. Yeah, but that's
front load.
Yeah, front loading.
You got to front load.
Good.
But that starts by just knowing that like Hey, it's a journey. It's going to take time. You got to get good rack. Just if you focus on racking up small wins in every life area as much as possible, you're going to get the doors. But you'll be in a much different position.
One of the things that I wanted you to touch on, because we had you come closer to the beginning of the year, because your book kind of has a solve for New Year's resolutions.
Yep.
And you talked about it a little bit with creating a vision, but if you could just talk about what your solve is and what's in your breakthrough year solve to New Year's resolutions and how people can really gain momentum.
Well, this is interesting. So, out of millions of Americans that attempt to achieve their goals, only 9% of people achieve their goals annually. 9%. So if you think about that, that means that on average, it takes people 7 to 10 years to make really big changes. And if you kind of think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Like, you'll talk to someone, this is the year they're going to lose the weight. This is the year they're going to lose the weight. This is the year they're going, and it's like 9 years later, then they finally do it. Because on average, people only achieve their goals 9% of the time. This is interesting. So by February 1st, so 4 weeks after the start of New Year's, over 78% of people have given up on their New Year's resolutions.
Didn't make it.
And don't even try past that because it was like so hard, which is crazy. But there was a really interesting study done at Dominican University where they looked at professionals. So they did a focus group of a few hundred professionals, everywhere from entry level all the way up to managers. And they wanted to see what made the biggest difference in terms of goal setting. And what they found was that folks that wrote down their vision on an annual basis, so they have a crystal clear vision of what they wanted to do, they turned that vision into goals, and then they had biweekly accountability. That number of goal achievement went from 9% all the way up to 80%.
Write it down, vision board it, and then have an accountability buddy, a partner, someone in your corner that believes in you and is keeping up and at least just checking in on you.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, how's it been going?
Yeah, 100%. If there's 3 like real easy moves to make, number one is create a vision statement for the year. And the best way to do that is describe your ideal life in 12 months from now. So create a vision of exactly what you want to accomplish. Turn those visions into goals. So SMART goal is a great a system, but basically you want to identify specific goals. So if it's an income goal, I want to double my business. The more specific, the better. Turn that vision into an actual goal. So I want to double my clients, and then with the SMART goal system. Be specific, talk about timeline, break that into milestones. So turn your vision into a set of goals for the year and then turn those goals into SMART goals. And then the number 3 is have an accountability partner. It can be a coach, it could be a business partner, it could be a spouse. But by just the simple fact of having to be accountable to those goals, it literally shifts 9% all the way up to 80%.
Gives you extra energy. Even when I was working out, my friend started running with me.
Yeah, you're fine.
I would get up at 6 a.m. when normally there's nothing you could do short of me getting fired to get me up that early. I do get up at 6 a.m. very frequently now, but back then I read to 2 a.m. and I'd get up at like noon if I could.
Yeah, I think one great piece of advice I could give is who's on your outside of creating a vision is who's on your launch team.
Yeah.
There's a number of years ago, Leonardo DiCaprio won an Oscar. And so I remember that was like a big joke in Hollywood, right? DiCaprio just couldn't win an Oscar. Yeah. And so he finally won. And so when he was, giving him his acceptance speech at the Oscars, he started to thank everyone who was a part of it. So he thanked the director, he thanked his agent, everyone who was had kind of helped him get to that place. And so often I think we think success is like an individual sport, when in reality it's a team sport.
Right.
And so one of the things I have noticed, and I talk about it, it's one of the steps, is if you have a vision for your life, especially if you want to get to a place you've never been before, you need people on your launch team.
Right.
And so I asked that question of who's on your launch team. And so who's on your team to help you experience that breakthrough?
Right.
And so there's a couple seats on the bus I definitely think you need. The first is you definitely need a mentor. So you need someone that's already achieved the success in your space
Right.
that you admire. To admire means to see something in someone that you would like to be or emulate.
Right.
And so having a mentor, number one. Number two, having a few folks around you that you would consider peers that are equal to you or above you in your given space.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine not that long ago who's a creative, gifted a singer-songwriter. She came to me and said, she's very similar in age. She's, in her mid-30s. And she had this idea to build a business, and she really wanted to break $100,000 a year. And so I asked her, I said, okay, of your top 5 closest like friends your age, like outside of me, like, is there anyone who has made more than $100,000 a year?
Right.
And her answer was no. And I was like, well, okay, so you need to make friends with at least 3 people who are your age, who or close to an age, who are where you're at or a little above you in where you want to be successful, because the things they're going to talk about and the way that they think
Right.
are going to be very different.
Yeah.
So like, I remember when I was doing the book, I really wanted to start public speaking more.
Right.
And traveling more. So the first thing I did was I made friends with a couple other guys my age who are successful. They make a few $100,000 a year. They're public speakers. They fly all the time, and I became friends with them just to be around them.
Right.
I wanted to get in their mindset. How did they think?
Yeah.
How did they process relationships, networking?
Mm-hmm.
And that like one simple move, like networking has like doubled our business this year. Just having like a networking strategy.
Yeah.
Like that
That's
simple of like, literally I have a schedule of 30 events I'm going to go to this year. All the events are pre-curated. I know why I'm going. We're setting up meetings with people for me to go. That has led to a lot of business. I would have never done that if I didn't have a couple of buddies last year
Right.
that do that professionally.
Right.
And then just getting around how they think
Yeah.
and the way that they see like traveling and
Right.
big impact. So I would say number 2, you need a mentor, but you need some peers that are kind of like making progress towards what you want to do.
Right.
So if you're a creative, you need some friends that are not just working for themselves. You need some buddies that are in the creative space that are actually trying to scale.
Right.
You just need to be around that energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be number 2 on your launch team. Number 3, you need to identify some thought leaders. So some folks that can give you great advice. So just so you could be a student and learn more about what you want to do.
Right.
So for example, if sales is really important to the growth of your business, you need to pick at least 3 sales experts and read their material and learn, followed by having some folks in your space that are similar in age to you or similar in their journey of their career that are actually doing really good at sales. They're probably doing a little better than you, so they can kind of push you. And then knowing, 1 or 2 mentors that have already built a company and specialized in sales,
right,
that can help you. And then the final seat is on your bus is you need someone below you.
Right.
So you need someone who's behind you in terms of their career advancement that you can pour into.
Right.
I'm a big believer in service. You need to be helping somebody.
Right.
And you don't even, it's not even, you have to like be mentoring them per se. You just need to be on their launch team.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so, it takes a team, but I would say build a launch team.
Right.
You're not going to get there on your own.
Yep.
Leonardo DiCaprio didn't do it on his own.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
That's true.
And so, thinking about, okay, who's on my team? Who do I need to surround myself with? That great quote, you are the average of the 5 people closest to you, is true.
Right.
There's a lot of research to that. The average person makes within 40% of their friends. That's crazy to think about. So, if you're making 50 and everyone around you is making 30 to 75 and you're expecting to break through, you're going to need to expand your friend group.
Right.
You need to get around different energy, and you need to get around people that have that mindset, who already exist in the space that you want to get to.
That's true.
So you can start just thinking more like them,
Right.
rather than other people. And I would say build your launch team is super important. It's the 5th step in the book.
There's so much in here there's so many nuggets throughout this whole entire interview. I'm so happy you came. I'm glad we got you down here.
Dude,
Thank you for coming through.
My gosh. This was great.
We have one last question. I'll let Quentin ask it, but this is the question we ask all our guests.
Mhm.
We're definitely going to have you back, man.
Dude,
Maybe we'll wrap up the year with you.
Yeah.
Like a start and wrap kind of thing.
Killer. I'll do it. Sign me up.
But Quentin, go ahead.
Yeah. So we like to ask this to all our guests. We want you to sum up your journey thus far, your life journey thus far, through your business, through your art, through your creative process, in either a quote or one word.
Oof.
And, let that be the personification of what it all means to you.
It doesn't have to be a quote.
It can be a phrase, quote, one word. I won't box you in.
I think the best we can hope for in life is to live a good life. There's a great line. There's a picture in scripture, right? It's once you get to the pearly gates and God says, well done, good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
I think that, I think if you can live in such a way where God's goodness, because God is the ultimate good, becomes your goodness, where God's peace becomes the peace in your family, where his abundance becomes the abundance you produce, where his joy becomes your joy, where his wisdom becomes your vision, his wisdom becomes your wisdom. And I think his vision for your life, your family, and the world becomes the vision that you're striving after and producing. And you leave everything around you a little bit better. And everyone around you, it doesn't mean you're perfect, but they're better off because you're there,
right?
And you're capable, and you're working in a way, and you're moving through the world in such a way where other people are supported,
right?
And you're offering value. I think that would be mine. That'd be pretty great.
Stefan Junaeus, thank you for coming by. We're going to have your breakthrough year in the link below, so make sure you pick it up. Me and Quentin stand by it. It's been a blessing to us. It's only made our business pursuits and our passion pursuits better. Thank you for coming by, man.
Thanks. Love you guys.
Love you, bro.
Love you, bro.
We did it.
Huzzah!
Huzzah.